Happy Wednesday, everyone. Dr. Worsba coming to you live from the basement here. We're in the middle of our second week of our quarantine, and I just wanted to take a moment before we go on that I was so very impressed by the videos that you turned in of Amazing Grace. Very, very pleased, very, very impressed with all the information that you absorbed. All of you took this assignment, you got it in on time, and you took it seriously, and that was just really terrific. I know that it's a strange, and I mentioned this, I think, on Monday, that it's a strange experience trying to conduct and sing at the same time. Sometimes those things are counterintuitive. For instance, when you're up in front of an ensemble, actually what you don't want to do is sing, because if you're singing, then that is going to interfere with how your ears start to shut down, and it starts to interfere with how you perceive sound. However, if you're conducting by yourself, as an exercise, singing is actually very, very useful. I had the wonderful experience when I was an undergraduate student. I attended the Rocky Ridge Music Center in Estes Park, Colorado, which was just it was a life-changing experience. 6 weeks in the Rocky Mountains, playing in an orchestra, taking lessons, taking my bassoon and going out into the woods and kind of looking at the Rocky Mountains and practicing for hours a day. It was a life-changing experience. But while I was there, I had the great opportunity to study private conducting with their orchestra conductor, Glenn Block, who actually is still teaching. He's the director of orchestras at Illinois State University. And one of the things that he had me do when I was studying with him is he had me sing and conduct. In fact, I remember specifically, he had me work on the overture to Egmont of Beethoven, and we worked on that quite a bit during my 6 weeks there, and he had me sing quite a bit. And it was a very useful exercise. So I was very, very just pleased to see all those videos. So I congratulate all of you. So what we're going to do today is kind of the second part of this discussion on fermatas. And if you remember, just as a quick synopsis, what we talked about on Monday, we said that all fermatas have in common that it's a cessation of rhythm. So in other words, what fermatas do is they stop all forward sense of rhythm. There are two main types of fermatas that are determinate in length and fermatas that are indeterminate in length. And the fermatas that you are going to see by and large are the ones that are indeterminate in length. In other words, that the composer does not give you a specified amount of time that the fermata is held. And we talked about the various things that can affect how long a fermata is held. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what are the 4 different types of fermatas that you are going to encounter in music that you work with. And I will be providing a handout of this because it's a little bit, when I teach this normally, I usually have a whiteboard and I write rhythms and I show a whole bunch of things of how this is going to work. So what I'm going to do is teach this, but then later on I'm going to give you kind of a handout that I'm probably just going to do it by hand because that's what I've got here at home, that will show you hopefully more in some additional detail how this works. Okay, so 4 different types of fermatas. The first one is a simple fermata. And what a simple fermata does is it ends a piece or it ends a movement. It is the final fermata that you are going to see, usually followed by a double bar and then silence. So that's what a simple fermata is. And so when you are working with this fermata, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to move my chair here just a minute. Okay, so a simple fermata is going to look like this. Let's say that this was the last note of a piece. Ba. Let me do that one more time for you. That's a simple fermata. So simple fermatas have 3 parts. First of all, you prepare the fermata. Now what that preparation is when that last note is sounding, that I do a small downbeat. So the first movement that I do is a downbeat that I initiate pretty much from my wrists and my fingers, like this. So I go down and then I do go up. But the preparation is a downbeat. Then the second part is actually the release of the sound. So if you see me go, so the last note, ba. So then the release is a downbeat. So the preparation is a downbeat, and then the release is a downbeat. The third part of this is that you resonate. And what I mean by resonate is that once the sound has stopped, once your hands have come back down to that same point, then you just very, very gently move your arms away from them, arms and hands away from that point. So let me do all three steps. I'll do it without singing. So you want to give the preparation, and I'll just see if I can just show you. You want to give the preparation and the release in the exact same spot. Let me do it one more time for you. So you're putting it in the exact same spot. It's on the exact same plane. So we're not changing planes up or down. No. I want you to take a look at what I'm doing with my left hand. When I start the sound, when we're holding the fermata, notice that my palm is up. And then once I do the preparation, when I get to the top, I flip it over. Like that. Because this hand shape shows sustain, whereas even if I just flip my hand over like this, this gives a very different message. This shows sustain or energy, and I would argue that that shuts it down or at least decreases it. Okay, so then there's one last thing. So the three steps: preparation, release, and then resonate. Now, there's one more thing that we need to talk about. I'm going to grab my coffee here. It's sitting on a chair right beside me. Okay. So the last thing we need to talk about is that when I am doing this, after we sustain, and you see me go up like this and then down like this, you will notice that that has a tempo. So if I'm holding, click. Sorry, let me move both my hands. Click, click. Now I could also go click, click, or click, click, or click, click. So there is a tempo there. My dear teacher, one of my dear teachers, Jean Corporon, talks about this concept that all releases have a tempo, but they do not need to be in tempo. And that's something I would write down. All releases have a tempo, but do not need to be in tempo. And so here's what that means. So let's say that we were conducting a march in 6/8. And we get to the fermata. I do not have to release it like this. I don't have to do it like that. So in other words, what I'm saying is I don't have to use the previous tempo of the music to create the tempo of the release. Should they be related loosely? Sure, but there's not really a formula, there's not an abacus thing that I can give you that really shows that. But this is where you kind of have to use your own judgment. Now, I might not do this. I might not go, yep, da 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 dee. Because we've abandoned the style. The tempo I really wouldn't have so much of an impact with, but we've impacted the style a little bit. Because when you do that release move, actually when you do the preparation and the release, there is a little bit of a style component. You could have a release that's on the softer side. You could have a release that's a little bit more abrupt. You could have something that's real quick. You could have something almost staccato. Because what ends up happening, and this is something that's a little bit esoteric, but when you release a fermata, you are leaving a sound, you're leaving resonance in the air, and it's regardless really of the medium that you're working with. You are leaving a sound in the air, and by comparison, we are leaving a shape in the air, regardless of whether it's this or whatever it is. We leave a shape in the air, and the ensemble leaves a sound in the air. And in a perfect world, those two match. That's really what we're shooting for. The last thing that I would talk about in terms of fermatas is that when you are doing the preparation and the release, we talked about in the past the difference between motions that are active and motions that are passive. When you do the preparation is passive. The release is active. So if I do a release like this, you notice that when I do this move, regardless of the style, that the preparation is passive. It's on the smaller side. Because what we don't want when we're sustaining the note, what we don't want to have happen is that from when we move our hands, we don't want the note to lose energy. We certainly don't want them to release the note too soon. So it's very important that really for all of these releases, that the preparation is always going to be passive, and then the release is going to be active. Okay, so that's a simple fermata. That's how you do a simple fermata. Okay, so the next type of fermata that we're going to talk about is a lifted fermata. Now, when we talk about these next three, when we talk about lifted fermata, the next one we're going to talk about is a compound fermata, and then the final one is a continuous fermata. What we're going to see is that each of these fermatas create a specific musical effect. In the case of the lifted fermata, a lifted fermata creates the effect of a breath mark. Okay, so this is where you need to use your creativity a little, your imagination a little bit. So let's say that we had 2 bars of 4/4. We had 2 bars of 4/4, and we had a fermata over beat 3 and all quarter notes. By the way, we had 4/4, all 2 bars of quarter notes. And in the first measure, we had a quarter note on beat 3, or we had the fermata on quarter note number 3. And we wanted to create the effect of a breath mark on beat 3, between beat 3 and beat 4. Okay, so it's going to look like this. Ta, 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 ta. Let me do that again. Ta, 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 ta. So, here's what happens. We still prepare, we still release, but now we go on. We still prepare, we still release, and then we go on. Furthermore, when we do the release, we do the release in the direction of where the fermata is printed. So for instance, if there's a fermata on beat 3, 1, 2, 3, I prepare 3, 4, 1. Let me do that a couple of times for you. 1, 2, 3, prepare, release, 4, 1. So when we do the release move, we end up conducting whatever pulse is under the fermata twice. And it creates the musical effect of a breath. You'll notice everything is the same. The preparation is passive. The release is active. But what's happening is instead of doing a downbeat, in this case I'm going to beat 3. And I need to do that. I have to show beat 3 again to put into context of where beat 4 is going to happen. Let me do it for you again. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1. Now let me move the fermata over one beat. Let's say, again, 2 bars of 4/4. Quarter notes in each bar, but this time what I'm going to do is we're going to put the quarter note on beat 4. Or sorry, put the fermata on beat 4 of the first bar. So that'll look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 1. Let me do it for you again. 1, 2, 3, fermata, prepare, release, 4. So that's how that works. So again, what it does is it creates the musical effect of a breath mark. So you prepare, you release, and you release in the direction of where that fermata is, or said in another way, whatever beat the fermata is under, you conduct twice, but then you go on. All right, let me do one more like that. Let's say that we had, keep those 2 bars of 4/4. Let's say now that we have the fermata on beat 1 of the second bar. Okay, so it would look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Prepare, release, 2, 3, 4. Let me do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fermata, prepare, release, 1, 2. So that's how that works. So what it does is it creates the musical effect of a breath mark. Okay, and so kind of what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do these in order of the way that you're going to see them, and see them in the music that you're working with. I mean, in my 25 years of teaching, this seems to be the order in which I see them. So you're going to see simple fermata. That's probably the undisputed champion, and then next would be a lifted fermata. Okay, so now we're going to go to a compound fermata. Okay, what compound fermatas do, pardon me, compound fermatas create the musical effect of a caesura. And the example that I'm going to show you is actually something that we are going to be working with intently next week, and that's the Star Spangled Banner. So what I'm going to conduct for you is, "O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." So 3/4, 2 bars of 3/4 with 2/8 note pickup. "O'er the land of the free," fermata over the half note. Then we'll do the fermata. I'll show you. Okay, so it's going to look like this. "O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." Let me do one more time, and then we'll talk about it. "O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, so let's unpack it. All right. So the fermata is over the half note. So we get to that half note, so we're going to sustain it. So we prepare, we release, but then we stop. "Land of the free," prepare, release, we stop. Then we need to conduct beat 2 again so we can go "and the home." So after we stop, we give a small beat 2 with a breath. "And the home." So prepare, release, you stop, and then you need to show beat 2 again. And you need to make it small. It's passive. It's passive. If you combine that passive beat with a small breath, they won't play. I'll prove it to you. See if you want to come in. O'er the land of the free. Right. Until just by virtue of the fact that I'm inhaling and conducting small, they won't come in. And then if they do, you can yell at them. Just kidding. Don't yell. Never yell at your students. All right. So that's what happens. I'm going to do that again. Okay. Same thing. O'er the land of the free, prepare, release, you stop. And the home of the brave, simple fermata. And the cool thing is that Star Spangled Banner uses a simple fermata at the end. It uses a compound fermata close to the end, and then the fermata before that is a lifted fermata. And so that's why that's going to be one of the things that we talk about next week. Okay, so we've talked about 3 of them so far. So the last one that we're going to talk about is continuous. So continuous fermatas we don't see a lot, but the musical effect of a continuous fermata is a continuous fermata creates a non-interrupted sound. It creates, I'm not trying to be redundant, but it creates this continuous sound across. So let me show you. So go back. Okay, so here's where we need to use your imagination. Okay, so go back to those 2 bars of 4/4, all quarter notes in each bar, and put a fermata on beat 3 of the first measure. So here's a continuous fermata. Ta, 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 ta. Let me do it for one more time. Ta, 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 ta. This is the one fermata where I divide responsibilities between my hands. So let me talk you through it. So we're conducting, we get to beat 3. So here's beat 3. I'm going to leave my hand out here. And then because the fermata is under beat 3, I need to conduct it again. So 1, 2, 3. This is going to stay out, but then I need to show beat 3 again. So I'm going to go 3, 4, 1. Let me do it slowly. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1. So what we end up doing is we, on beat 1, instead of, to start it, we don't release it, we sustain it. So we go 1, 2, sustain, prepare, go on, 1. So we sustain. Because the fermata is under beat 3, I need to show beat 3 again, and I'm going to make it small. 3, 4, 1. That's the one that you see the least, at least in my 25 years. And it's not that you don't see it, but it's just not as common as the previous 3. So simple fermata, lifted fermata, compound fermata, and then continuous fermata. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to write out, in very legible handwriting, I'm going to write out kind of a synopsis of what we've talked about these last 2 days. So you've got that so you have that for your files, because you're going to need all of that information when we start working on Star Spangled Banner. We're going to have 2 classes on Star Spangled Banner next week, and then you will have a video due to me of Star Spangled Banner next Friday before at 11:59 p.m. on Friday. My only other reminder for you is that your midterm exam is due this Friday at 11:59. I've already received quite a few of them. Reminder, there's no lecture. So there's not going to be a lecture this Friday. I'm going to give you that time to work on your exam, and I'm sure a lot of other things that you're doing right now. And I will look forward to getting your exams, and I will see you next Monday. Keep on keeping on, folks. Keep on keeping on. I know this is not ideal, but again, I was just really, really impressed with the videos that you sent. All right, folks. Have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday.